Good afternoon and welcome back to Football League World TV. We've got a midweek preview for you tonight. We're going to be taking a look at the free EFL fixtures on this Wednesday evening. We've got 3 games in the Sky Bet Championship. 3 really interesting games we're going to be delving into during this show. My name is Sam Rourke, the Chief Editor of footballleagueworld.co.uk. I'm joined by 2 of my colleagues, Ben Wignall and Adam Jones. Ben, how are you getting on this afternoon?
Yeah, all good, Sam. On cloud 9 still after last night, the big Lancashire derby. Yeah, looking forward to some big games coming up tonight at mainly at the top end of the table and concerning the playoff race. So it's some interesting ones to look forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. Adam, I imagine you're in equally good mood after Reading's win last night.
Yeah, very nervy. I don't think I was watching it kind of half the game anyway, but no, it was a fantastic result. And you know, 2 of my favourite teams really outside of Reading, kind of BORO at the moment and Forest are in action tonight. So I'm excited to get into this one.
Yeah, lots of really interesting, intriguing clashes tonight in the second tier. Just a reminder, we are broadcasting live on Facebook, Twitter and YouTube. So send in your comments. Are you off to an EFL fixture this evening? We also want to get your score predictions for the 3 matches in the Championship tonight. Let's start off with Middlesbrough versus Fulham. So we've got a really, really interesting clash tonight at the Riverside. Is Middlesbrough, who currently occupy 6th position in the Championship, take on table toppers Fulham in a big match at the top end of the Championship table. Boro coming to this game off the back of a comprehensive 4-0 win against Peterborough United on the weekend. Fulham also come into this match off the back of a victory. They beat West London rivals QPR 2-0 at the Kiyan Prince Foundation Stadium on the weekend. So both teams coming into this match on good form. Ben, this has got the making of a really potential cracker, hasn't it? Because there's lots of top players on display tonight and lots of attacking players that could make a real impact on this game.
Yeah, it should really be an open game considering how both teams play. I don't know if, Marco Silva going up to the Riverside, if he's going to change anything, because we all know what Borough play under Chris Wilder with, the overlapping centre-backs and how attacking they are. And you just wonder if obviously they got back to winning ways, Fulham against QPR at the weekend, but, they drew against Barnsley and lost against West Brom before the international break. So you do wonder if Silva's going to potentially, try and shore it up and hit Borough on the counter, because they can be open at times, but, they've won 8 games in a row at home, so they're going to be strong going into this, even when you consider Fulham a top of the league. And it's probably a more important game for Middlesbrough, because the playoff race is still, heating up. There's teams behind Middlesbrough who are, have games in hand and who are still in the race. So, if you think that Fulham perhaps probably have the, promotion almost wrapped up, it does seem like a more important game for Borough, but it does promise goals the way both teams have been playing recently.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you look at the graphic on screen right now, when you look at the previous 6 meetings, very heavily in Fulham's favour. Borough haven't beaten Fulham in their last 6 clashes between the 2 sides. Adam, who do you think goes into this game as favourites this evening? Do you think it is the table toppers Fulham?
I'll tell you what, I think this is probably out of the 3 games in the preview, this is probably the hardest one to predict, if I'm honest with you. I mean, both teams have got plenty to play for, as Ben said, with Middlesbrough, plenty to play for, with Forest behind them and having a game in hand as well. But also, I mean, you look at Fulham and you look at Middlesbrough, and I think if Borough win both of their games in hand to take them up to 40 games, then they go third. And to be honest, I mean, the Cottagers, they'll want to have the kind of the promotion wrapped up as soon as possible. I think definitely in terms of Marco Silva anyway, so they can kind of, perhaps experiment kind of for next season. And I think that's really important, because they have persisted with a 4-2-3-1 formation for quite a bit of it and stuck to their principles. And perhaps that's something they'll do in the Premier League as well. But I think for me, him having the chance to experiment with different players, finding out who to keep, who to kind of sell on, I think is going to be really important, really, for next season. So having it wrapped up as soon as possible would be really kind of ideal for them. In terms of Fulham, I think they're kind of just as good kind of away from home as they are at home. So, that they have every chance of getting a a win tonight. So yeah, it's a big game for both sides. I think I'd agree with Ben in the fact that it's probably a big game for Middlesbrough, really. But they've got the kind of Riverside crowd behind them, and a win would be absolutely massive for them in terms of securing a playoff spot and also pushing Bournemouth as well. It's unlikely at this stage, but you may as well look up and see who you can catch.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose from a Borough perspective, they'll be hoping it's the Fulham that turned up at West Brom a few weeks ago when the Baggies beat Fulham 1-0 at the Hawthorns. But Fulham's away form this season has been pretty imperious. They have been very good on the road. Ben, just looking at this then from both teams' perspective, who do you think are going to be the key players this evening? Obviously, Alexander Mitrovic is probably one you're going to say, given the 37 league goals he scored in the Championship this season. Other than Mitrovic, are there any other players you feel could have a real say on tonight's game for both sides?
I think a key battle will be down one of the flanks. I think Isaiah Jones against Anthony Robinson could be an interesting one. Robinson didn't play at the weekend because he'd just come back from the international break with the USA, so Joe Bryan played. But when I've seen Robinson play a few times this season, he's not always been the most strong defensively, and we've seen how good Jones can be this season. He's got a number of assists, and he's had the beating of a lot of fullbacks this season. So I think that one could be a really interesting battle down that right hand side for Middlesbrough. And on the other hand, I think maybe Fabio Carvalho could have a big part to play if Fulham do sit back a little bit more than normal because of Borough's attacking play. Then I think Carvalho and Cabano could really be very effective on the counter attack. If Mitrovic is holding it up, I expect Mitrovic to have a good battle with Dale Fry tonight. But I think Carvalho can get into those pockets of space. He'll be coming up against someone in Johnny Howson who's playing really well this season and very experienced. But Carvalho seems to get better and better. He's still a teenager, but he showed a lot of class this season. I think he could provide a bit of quality tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of real top-class players on display at the Riverside this evening. Just a reminder to all those watching this broadcast live, send in your score predictions. How do you think Middlesbrough versus Fulham will pan out this evening? Please do let us know. Right, Ben, let's get your score prediction for Borough Fulham tonight.
I'm going to go with a 2-1 to Middlesbrough. Obviously, Fulham did get back to winning ways in QPR, but I just thought with the two results before the international break, they looked a little shaky. So I think Middlesbrough could, carry on that good home form and take 3 points.
Yeah, that'd be a massive result for Chris Wilder's side if they do win. Adam, what's your score prediction for Borough Fulham tonight?
I mean, there's plenty of motivation for both teams to go and get a win, but I think it's going to be that type of game where no one really gets what they want. I think, both sides might be quite solid defensively. So I'm going to go with the 1-1. I don't think there'll be too much in it, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah, there we go. Just a reminder, please do send in your score predictions. Right, well, that's our look at Middlesbrough versus Fulham. Let's take a look at Nottingham Forest v Coventry next. Forest take on Coventry this evening at the City Ground. Another big game in the top half of the table. Obviously, Forest well in the hunt now for a top 6 spot. They currently sit in 8th position, 1 point away from 6th place Middlesbrough. They do have many games in hand on a lot of the teams above them. 3 games in hand on the likes of Sheffield United and Luton. So tonight is a really big game for Steve Cooper and his side. They come into this fixture off the back of a really, really impressive 4-1 victory at Bloomfield Road against Blackpool on the weekend. A really convincing display there. As for Coventry, their playoff hopes have somewhat dwindled over the last few weeks and months. They currently sit in 11th position. But they do still have a faint chance of reaching the top 6. So they'll be hoping for a result this evening. They come into this game off the back of a 2-2 draw against Blackburn, a last-gasp Victor Gyökeres goal, getting a point for Mark Robbins' side. Right, Ben, let's come to you here. Big game for Forest in particular tonight. This is a game they'll be wanting to get 3 points from, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a weird one with Forest. They seem to either win or get a point every week, but they still seem to be around 8th, 9th or 10th. And I would have thought they'd be in the playoff spots comfortably by now, but they've got these games in hand to make a difference. And it is in their hands now, with having a few games in hand on Blackburn in 6th place. So, win tonight and they're right in the mix. They should be feeling very comfy if they do get 3 points tonight. And I guess you can say it's a must-win game because it is so competitive, that playoff race. A few drop points here and there, and the likes of even Millwall behind him could get back into it. So it's imperative that they do get all 3 points here. And the way they dispatched of Blackpool on Saturday, a team who have took the game to the likes of Fulham and Bournemouth this season, was kind of a statement win to say that they're here to blow teams away between now and the end of the season. Now they've not got the FA Cup to distract them somewhat, so I think they're more than capable, Forest, of getting a win here. But Coventry will put up a tough test. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, ever since Steve Cooper's arrival at the City Ground, their home form has really improved considerably. When you compare it to when Chris Hughton was there. Adam, Coventry this season haven't been the greatest on the road. They've had to rely a lot on their form at home at the CBS Arena. The stats here are pointing towards a Forest home win. How do you see this one panning out?
Yeah, I think, to be honest with you, I think it's going to be a home win. Obviously, that kind of spoils my prediction for the later stages. But I think for me, it's going to be a Forest win. I think, now that they've got Scott McKenna back, obviously earlier than they thought they would, I think that's a massive boost for them. And I think they need to come into this game with perhaps a controlled arrogance. I think they need to be as confident as possible going forward. I think they've got the capability up front with the likes of Brennan Johnson and Keenan Davis to really make a difference, and to they've been fantastic in recent games, obviously going forward against Blackpool and Reading. So it's important that they continue pushing forward in the same vein. And as I mentioned, McKenna at the back is going to be a massive boost to them. Obviously having Joe Worrell there as well. So it's going to be a really tall order, I think, for Coventry City. Obviously they've got their own defensive absences. There's no guarantee that Carl McFadden's going to be back tonight, which is a bit of a blow for them, considering that Jake Clark-Salter is also out and he might be out for the season. So, they're going to be perhaps quite vulnerable defensively, and there is a potential for a hammering. But I think, it remains to be seen. Obviously, Coventry are a team that quite like to have the ball, but I think for me, they're going to have to counter tonight. I think that with the home crowd behind them, I think Forest are going to dominate, and that's not really going to suit Coventry. And that's the reason why I'm kind of so confident, about a home win tonight. Perhaps they'll prove me wrong, Coventry, but I can see this one being a reasonably comfortable home win.
Okay, Forest have scored 11 goals in their last 3 Championship games, which is a remarkable figure. They are scoring goals for fun right now. Right, let's look at some key individuals then this evening, Ben. Obviously, the influence of Brennan Johnson has been pretty profound this season for Nottingham Forest. He's had a major save for them. What players are standing out for you this evening from both sides that again could dictate this game?
Well, the obvious ones, obviously, for Forest, Johnson and Jed Spence, they've stood out all season. But I think one player who could be important is Ryan Yates. And obviously, Coventry have got Callum O'Hare, I think he's probably the most fouled in the division. He's a very tricky player, and I think Yates will be in that midfield to kind of marshal him, maybe even man-mark him around the pitch. So I think he could be really important tonight. And for Coventry, I think that tussle between Spence and Ian Matson will be interesting. They're both very good attacking wing backs, and there could be a bit of space for both players to attack in down there. So I think for Forest, I think it will be very important to keep an eye on O'Hare, and then for Coventry, I think Matson could have a bit of influence if he gets some space down that left flank.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we got a comment come in from YouTube. Do Daily, great to have you with us this afternoon. This won't be easy for Forest, but on the run we are in. I see a confident 2-0 win. Des from Do Daily, confident that the Reds will pick up a valuable 3 points this evening. Ben, let's get your score prediction for Forest Coventry tonight.
I'm going to go with a 3-1 win for Forest. I think they've been looking impressive in recent weeks, and I can't see the form tailing off at this point. So 3-1 comfortable win.
And Adam, I assume you're sticking with your prediction. You haven't changed it in the last minute or so.
No, I haven't changed my mind. I just can't see how Gordon and Gyökeres are going to get past the likes of BORO and McKenna. So I'm going to go with a 2-0 victory. I'm going to go, the same with the commenter. I think it's going to be 2-0.
Okay, everyone going for a Forest win this evening. There we go. Let us know in the comments what you think the result of Forest Coventry will be tonight. Right, let's look at one more final game playing out this evening in the Sky Bet Championship, and that's West Brom against AFC Bournemouth. West Brom take on Bournemouth this evening at the Hawthorns. The Baggies' hopes of a playoff spot were severely dented on Sunday as they were downed 1-0 by Midlands rivals Birmingham City. A solitary Lyle Taylor goal condemning West Brom to defeat on the weekend. As for Bournemouth, they come into this game in good form. They beat Bristol City 3-2 on the weekend and will be very keen to pick up 3 points here as they look to cement their top 2 spot. They are looking good right now in second position, 6 points clear of Huddersfield Town in third position with 3 games in hand as well. So it's all looking pretty rosy for Scott Parker and his Cherries. Ben, let's come to you then. Again, arguably probably a more important game for Bournemouth this, given West Brom's chances of finishing the top 6 are pretty slim right now, aren't they?
Yeah, they definitely dwindled after that loss against Birmingham on Sunday where they didn't have a shot on target, so that'll have been disappointing. But yeah, it's definitely a more important game for Bournemouth. I think they've, given themselves a bit of a safety blanket now with that win against Huddersfield a few weeks ago, and they came back against Bristol City on Saturday, and now they've got 3 games in hand on Huddersfield and Luton. So I think a couple more wins should probably see them automatically promoted. So it's definitely important. But we've seen what can happen when pressure can get to teams. Fulham with their 1 point in 6 before the international break. We've seen even Forest Green in League 2 slip up a little bit in recent weeks before coming back to form. So, I think Bournemouth have got enough experience in that team now to kind of keep the heads, and they might not get a clear win tonight. West Brom have still got some a good team, and they beat Fulham before the international break, so they can get results, but you won't be confident looking at what they did on Sunday against Birmingham for West Brom. So yeah, it is an important game for Bournemouth, and they should have enough experience to keep the heads.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what I find quite interesting looking at the stats heading into this game, Bournemouth have scored 20 more goals than West Brom this season. That's a considerable amount. 62 goals the Cherries have scored this term. Adam, which players stand out for you tonight from both sides that will make an impact in this game? Obviously, Solanke's having a really fruitful season in front of goal. We saw Siriki Dembele score a wonderful goal on the weekend. He might come into this game in place of Jadon Anthony. Which players stand out for you?
I think in terms of the hosts, I'm looking at one man. I'm looking at Karlan Grant. I think he's probably one of the only West Brom kind of players to really step up to the plate, definitely kind of in the forward areas anyway this season. So I think for me, he's one player that can really get out the Bournemouth defence. I think they showed kind of some defensive vulnerabilities, obviously in the last game against Bristol City, obviously conceding late as well. Obviously, it didn't prove to be costly in the end, but it just goes to show that there are vulnerabilities that can be exploited in there. So I think he's one player that should definitely be kept to you should definitely keep an eye on. I think in terms of the visitors, obviously Solanke is an obvious one, really, as you mentioned. I think this game though might be set up for Jordan Zamora to kind of exploit the space in between likes of Darnell Furlong and Ajayi, maybe just kind of we've seen a couple of weeks ago how Cyrus Christie of Swansea kind of getting real joy as a wing back there, having all the space and time in the world, and you can't really give Zamora that. If he shows a bit of end product tonight and if he gets the space, then I think he'll hurt Albion. So for me, he's one player, I think, perhaps an unexpected player, but one player that I'd definitely be keeping an eye on as well. And obviously, obviously Albion, I think, might be relying a little bit on Sam Johnston, if Bournemouth start peppering their goal. So, there are quite a few kind of key players in there, but I'd definitely look at Grant for West Brom, and I'd look at Zamora for Bournemouth, because those could be kind of real game changers going forward.
Yeah, I suppose one weapon that West Brom have in their armoury heading into tonight's game is their aerial threat. When you look at the comparisons when it comes to the aerial duel success between West Brom and Bournemouth, West Brom's is 59% in comparison to Bournemouth's 48%. So there's quite a clear difference when it comes to that. Obviously, we know how far Darnell Furlong can throw our football. That has proved to be a really impressive attribute in that West Bromwich Albion team. Obviously, Andy Carroll in the mixer as well. Matt Clark, Semi Ajayi, and Carl Bartley, all pretty lofty characters. Ben, do you think that's something that West Brom could maybe use their advantage tonight, their aerial threat?
They could do, yeah, but it's not like Bournemouth haven't got big players at the back. Nat Phillips, I think we know he'll put his head on anything from what we've seen. So I think he'll relish a battle with Carroll if he ends up starting. I think if Gary Cahill was still in and around the team, he'd be a good player to have in tonight to match up to Carroll. But don't think he's going to be playing much between now and the end of the season. But I think Phillips and Kelly should be well equipped to deal with Carroll, even though he's proven he's still a very viable threat at this level anyway, if he can keep his fitness. But yeah, West Brom from set pieces, especially with Bartley, Ajayi and Clark coming forward, they will be looking to kind of exploit Bournemouth from there, but I think they should be more than up to trying to deal with it.
Okay. Right, let's get your score predictions then for West Brom v Bournemouth. Ben, we'll start with you.
I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw. I wouldn't, after what West Brom did on Sunday, I wouldn't be too convinced he'd find the back of the net, really, but I just think that they will end up getting something from this, and Bournemouth, they'll be content with a point going back down south. Okay,
Adam, what are you going for in this one?
I think the visitors might just edge it. I think I may have been convinced really by Albion's really poor performance against Birmingham, so I'm going to go with a 2-1. I think that West Brom might score a consolation, but I don't think it will get any further than that.
Okay, well there we go. It's just had to be an interesting clash at West Brom tonight as Bournemouth travel to the Hawthorns. Right, well, that concludes the EFL Wednesday night preview show here on Football League World TV. Thanks for everyone that tuned in to watch the show. Thanks for your comments that came in as well. If you are watching the show on repeat on YouTube, please do stick a like in below this video and subscribe to the channel. It really does help us grow as a channel. Ben, Adam, thanks for joining me on this afternoon's show. Coming up tomorrow on Football League World TV, we've got the EFL Midweek review show with George Douglas at the wheel for that one. That kicks off at 10:30 in the morning, so make sure to tune in for that one. But from myself, Ben and Adam, we shall see you soon.